I get up in the morning, I get ready, I get my papers read, and I go to the place, and then I show up, and then I'm in a position, whatever that may be, private or public life, to achieve. So I think that's what happened in this particular case. I think there was luck, as there has been here, and coincidence. But you got to be ready.
Yes?
Which date was it filed? I mean, which year, the case?
The Lau case was filed in January of 1970. The memo that we're talking about was May 25th, and I lost in the trial district court on May 27th.
Well, the interesting thing, though, was that in that, before that was filed, San Francisco actually had some bilingual Spanish programs started. Why wouldn't they do anything similar in Chinese? Or
well, I'll give you my opinion why we're here 40 years later. To me, the major reason we're here 40 years later is something called tenure and seniority. My view is that as the teacher unions, I want to put no one out of a job. But the message of Lau is we run schools to educate kids, not to pay teacher salaries. And that to me has been the major barrier to Lau in 40 years.
That's a gutsy thing to say for a radical liberal like him.
That's redundant.
So I commend him for saying.
Yes.
She said there's zero time.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Carranza, in his opening talk this morning, said that Lau changed a mindset from educators and the public, but Proposition 227 reset a mindset. It absolutely did, because there's been 16 years of educators, parents, community who now have a different context by which they view education.
I so strongly disagree with you. We're running out of time. The reason I disagree with you is that Prop 227 has no meaning if you want to offer Lau and bilingual education. It has an option for parents wanting it. Obviously, the federal law is not affected by it. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. The mindset was there before 227. The people who don't want to do 227 had the mindset. What they have now is some, quote, muscle to enforce their mindset. But basically, as I said, it's an issue of attitude. All 227 does is give those who don't want to be here today a little more argument. It legally has no weight if you don't want to give it weight. And please come up afterwards, I'm happy to talk. Are we out of time? Are you saying that? You tell me what to do.
Well, you have an extra 7 minutes if you want.
Then I apologize, please talk, I apologize.
I'll say it very quickly, is that we have federal law, we have state law, we have school district regulations, but with the lack of oversight and the lack of requirements to comply, the violations of all of these things are rampant, because no one is overseeing at local school levels what actually happens, regardless of law, regardless of regulation.
You heard Dr. Gill's talk this morning. I hope that's where we're going to see efforts. Yes, please.
I wanted to ask those of you who were there at that, during that historical period, about the role of the parents. I imagine that it took a lot of courage for these immigrant parents to advocate for their children, and I'm curious about your personal interactions with the parents and, you know, their role in this case.
You know, we would not have gotten the task force to fashion the remedy in San Francisco, nor get the master plan that the task force fashioned through the school board if we did not have hundreds, if not thousands of parents supporting us at the school board meeting. And some of those parents are here. Phyllis and Naomi are here. And you know, especially, after the decision came down, we really, because when the decision came down, and we all said that bilingual education is the way to go, and of the 7 board members, we only had 1 vote for bilingual education. But after almost a year of wrangling, eventually, you know, guess who introduced a resolution to approve the master plan? Eugene Hopp, who was the most conservative Republican appointed by Joseph Alioto against busing. kind of person. He carried the resolution and adopted. And of course, with the support from Justice Department, Jeremiah Glassman, is still a justice? Yeah. He came in town, so did Stan, came in town to try to help push things along, but the parents did play a very, very crucial role. I mean, they were showing up in every school board meeting to push for it. And the school district did everything it possibly could to frustrate us and to discourage us. I mean, Superintendent Morena was the one who appointed the task force, and the minute we submitted the task force, he disowned the entire report.
Please.
Yes, I'm currently a school board member for the 8th largest school district in California. My name is Barbara Flores, and San Bernardino City Unified. And the will of our parents, the courage and the will, is what drives civil rights and justice. The role that both of you played, you as the attorney, you as a bureaucrat that had a heart.
Attorney bureaucrat.
That had a heart.
Or bureaucrat.
And also chutzpah, right?
No, that's me, not you.
That's it. Well, how would I say it for him?
Chutzpah's fine.
Huevos. You had the courage to do this. And yes, 227 came, but I'll tell you in San Bernardino, because of the community organizing, we were the only district in the area that didn't fold. We have bilingual education. It could be better, and we need to support it. And I think that Lau versus Nichols shifted us to value, our heritage, our language, our cultures, And this, to me, is how we work in unity. We have to work in unity. Asian, Black, Latino, white, we all have to work in unity for our civil rights. If we don't, we're going to lose them.
Thank you.
At one point, I forgot to mention, when I mentioned that of the 7 school board members, only 1 was in favor of bilingual education, and yet we knew that's what we wanted. So the first thing was that we know that we cannot allow the school district to come out with a response to the Supreme Court decision. And that's why we came out with the idea of Citizens Task Force for Bilingual Education.
Right.
And everybody on that task force are parents from across the city of all the major linguistic groups.
Right.
And then they were the one who eventually helped mobilize to the school board meeting, sometimes as many as 500-600 people at a school board meeting.
And let me tell you, when
them.
the board members see that many people, they shake.
Yes.
I'm Jean Ramirez, and I had the first Spanish bilingual kindergarten in San Francisco in 1968. And I wanted to make a comment about why we didn't have Chinese bilingual at the same time. And whether what we were told was true, or whether it was a reason not to provide the service, was that in the early days, many of our Chinese and Chinese American students were going to Chinese language classes on the weekends. And so what we always heard was, well, they don't need it and they don't want it. They mainly want to be able to participate and have the curriculum and English as an additional language, as a second language, whatever. And of course, as we started to see, many of the students, especially those who were Chinese American, didn't want to continue, the kids, going to Saturday school. They didn't want to give out their day up. And also there were differences in the instructional approaches. It was much more of a rote kind of focus, and yet they were learning different or going through different learning and teaching styles in the schools. So we started to see those numbers falling off. And it was at that point that there was the inroads to have Chinese bilingual education. I also think that it was efficacious that it was Lau versus Nichols, and not, somebody said Lopez versus Nichols, because the numbers, while of course our Chinese numbers and our other Asian numbers in San Francisco are commensurate with the Spanish language. Nowhere else in the country. So it wasn't quite, if it was Lopez, this is going to change a huge, I mean, every place. And it seemed people not to realize that if Lao wins, all non-native speakers are going to win, and the services are going to change for everybody. But that goes back to the feelings of the very late 60s when I first started.
Well, let me tell you that in some sense it was not conscious, but it turns out in many ways to be a racist decision to call it Lao. Dr. Gill this morning mentioned perceptions of the Asians make it. The Jews made it. Well, the Asians, you know, the Chinese were the model minority. I mean, the U.S. Supreme Court was 8 white judges and 1 black. Probably the only contact they had with an Asian American was at a laundry or a restaurant. I'm being totally serious. And to that extent, it was important in Lao, when filing briefs in support, to have briefs from Asian organizations, Jewish American organization, saying, guess what, court? They all don't make it. There are hundreds of thousands of Asians or Jews who have not made it economically, regardless of your stereotype, and a lot of that is because of language. We have to stop. Please ask questions afterwards. I have to make a couple administrative comments. You are now free. You must come back, though. We have guards. No host lunch. We have some recommendations of where to go. Please be coming at 1:30 because Dean Rachel Moran of UCLA Law School, who is really the preeminent scholar in this area, is going to talk about language education. And then in the afternoon we have some concurrent panels which we hope that you will go back and forth and enjoy. Thank you very much.